Hello, welcome everybody. This is Tamera. Hey Jen, how are you today?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. It's a Monday, so a full Monday for sure. And
Yes.
we're stopping to spend a few minutes to talk with everybody about four topics in our HR huddle. And I think we have a few things we want to cover today, Jen. And I know one, you've been working on a diversity and inclusion project. Do you want to tell everybody about it?
Gosh, well, yes. I mean, I'll just tell you about an event in the diversity, and one of the things that's happening right now is this concept of maybe expanding diversity and inclusion to include diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I have an event tomorrow. I've been fortunate enough to have an opportunity to host a panel for the CPA FMA, really focused on getting real about racial inequity in our profession and the difficulty we've had recruiting and retaining people of color, and in particular, Black professionals into our profession. And I have three incredibly fun, caring, generous Black leaders in different parts of firm management and leadership who are going to come and share their stories and share their strategies and ideas for how we can really shift this in our profession and make make the representation the way that it should be, and make our firms more inclusive, and really genuinely give people of color an opportunity. And so I hope people will join me tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. And I'm going to put the link to register in this in the chat, Tamera, while you may set up the rest of what we're doing today.
Okay. And you don't have to be a member of the CPA FMA to attend, right? So anybody can attend.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay, good. All right. So watch for that link. And if you have any questions, let us know about that. And then we thought we would continue our discussion from last week. We were talking about remote and our rush to remote and some ideas that we've been seeing successful with firms and some things to watch for. And I thought we would continue with that. And then I think we wanted to talk about feedback a little bit. So I think one of the things that we have been noticing is the shift on the talent side to move most everything online. And I think firms have been looking at their learning programs and like audit week and, different training. And I know there's been some, balance of what do we cover from a technical training and soft skills training, looking at, managing our budget this year in 2020 also. But I think most things have been shifting and that's been pretty successful. I think one of the questions that has come up is, what about recruiting and onboarding? It's recruiting season. And making sure that we are having good opportunities for people to feel welcomed and part of the culture, and stopping to look through each one of those steps and saying, how can we have this in their blended environment? So I don't know if there's any additional ideas you want to share about that, Jen. I know you've had some success with some firms. You've heard some things that they're doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the things, just to say this, is that there were a lot of firms when COVID hit in mid-March. There was almost two classes of firms: those that said, we're going to figure this out online, and those that said, oh wait, we're out of business as it relates to what I'll call the talent pipeline. Yeah. So they told their interns to go home and said, we're done. We can't manage you. They, sort of stopped recruiting and couldn't picture onboarding and training and all those things in that remote environment. So they sort of shut that stuff down, which we think is a tremendous mistake. And in the economic downturn of 2009, 10, let's say 8, 9, 10, we saw firms stop feeding their talent pipeline. They stopped going on campus. They stopped recruiting. They stopped making new hires because of economic reasons, but the result was the same. 5 years later, they were looking around saying, gosh, we're missing a whole generation of people. We can't figure out why. And we were like, hey, we think we know. And it's because we stopped hiring new folks and bringing them along in this apprentice model that we have. And if you don't do that, you end up with a gap. And so for different reasons, firms were thinking about stopping, or a lot did stop in March, April. We saw other firms who were like, wait a minute, we can't miss a beat. and we're going to figure this out remotely. And then kind of the middle group, which stopped maybe or slowed it down early in the spring and then realized, oh man, this thing isn't going to be gone by summer or fall. We're going to have to figure it out. So I think we just need to recognize that that's, there's kind of everybody's all over the spectrum. But the ones that have been working hard to figure out remote, first of all, I'm going to start with training, Tamera, because or learning and development or onboarding or whatever it's a combination of those things. There's this conversation called you need to be next to me in order for me to transfer knowledge to you, or for me to help you learn things, or for me to show you things. And so because you're not next to me, we can't pull up to each other's cubicles and meet. So therefore I can't transfer my knowledge to you. And the information there is like, that's false. It's completely false. And so firms realize that if they use the right online tools and they approach this thoughtfully, that they can do knowledge transfer and skills development in a remote environment. And what's happening right now is that small firms, medium firms, and large firms alike are all sort of getting a big light bulb that says, we could use a Zoom platform, for instance. We could schedule onboarding for multiple interns or new hires at the same time. They can all appear. We can hold our regular, not maybe rethought, so it's engaging, because we can't do the same sort of learning style, lecture style learning, or guest speaker after guest speaker coming in to talk to them. We can't do that in video because people get burnt. But so rethinking sort of the smaller bite-size things. And I could use Zoom though, and I can have people come and I can do a one-to-many presentation to them. I can schedule them for one-on-ones with their training buddy or their mentor, or the person who's going to be looking out for them. I can break them into small breakout groups, and I could have, using the Zoom breakout room feature, I could put the audit folks with the auditor shepherds, and I could put my tax folks over here. And so I could do one-to-many with everybody. Then I can break them into groups by their specific specialties. There's all these things. I can share screens with people as I'm teaching them, so we can look at the same files and they can show me their work while they're doing it. So I don't have to be physically with them to do those things. And so it's like letting go of the three-dimensional paradigm that you're stuck with in our heads, and we all are, and then reimagining and then trying it. And most firms who are doing that are being like, wow, this is totally workable. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, so a couple notes on that. One is, I heard a firm was doing their audit training, and they, the 3D, so thinking about it in that paradigm, they would have tables, and they would have table leaders. And they were like, how do we facilitate this group work and case study exercises? And they did what you were just talking about is breakout rooms. And so I might be a table leader, and you're a table leader for a different breakout room. And then they would still work through the case studies. I could still see what they're, sharing their screens. They could use the whiteboards. And they said it was just phenomenal how it was able to transfer when they started to see that. So that's like an example of walking through that paradigm and how can we do it, with the technologies that we have. I also heard, like on the onboarding, some concern about how do I get to know people? Like I might walk and see them in the hallway and say, hey, Jen, welcome aboard. Nice to see you. I don't have that ability, or I'll see you in the lunchroom at the coffee bar. And so now I have to, again, think about, well, how do I welcome somebody? I'm going to have to reach out on Teams and say, hey, welcome, or send them an email and say, I'd love to schedule 15 minutes and chat and get acquainted. And so we have to, make those shifts. So as you're looking at what the steps are, some of them are introductory, or some of them are specific things that we might need to, be sharing with them about, or I'm supposed to educate them about something about our firm, that we want to schedule that. But that walking around, if you will, that's missing in our virtual environment, how do we walk around in technology? So those are some other ideas, to think about, how we can facilitate that. I think the only other one I would say is cultural. And I know a lot of firms, with onboarding or intern programs and orientation, might do some fun events. And I think firms are getting really creative. I was on it was a marketing and business development call today, but they were talking about recruiting, and they were talking about what kind of events they could have. A mixology. You probably don't want to do that necessarily with interns because they might not be 21, but that was an example that was brought up. But there's other kinds of things that you can do or events that people are doing to have something that could be fun and new ways to do that. I know we're going to do carameled apples, for our team event, on Friday. And so there's just things that we could incorporate to still have that fun. Gosh, this is a good group of people to hang with. I want to hang with these people. So those are some other ideas.
Well, and learning is one of the theories of learning is that where the puck is headed, that we're all supposed to be skating toward in learning and development is more bite-sized pieces, more gamification, more interactivity, more checking for learning by having people do skills-based assignments or homework in between learning and experiences. We're doing a lot of those things. Those are actually easier done remotely.
Right.
Like you and I, we teach a number of things where we're trying to transfer skill, not just knowledge. The only way we can tell if they got the skill is if they turn in homework. The only way that we can get them to do homework is if we leave them alone and send them out to do the homework and then send them to, ask them to turn it in and then give them feedback. And, I don't think a lot of folks are thinking about the fact that this kind of remote approach and these platforms may facilitate some of those things that next generation talent, next generation clients prefer in terms of communication style. They prefer it in terms of learning. And so online really lends itself to making things more game-like or more simulation, like simulating an audit. And we have clients who've been doing like audit boot camps where the audit training for first-year auditors is an simulated audit boot camp taught by managers who also get learning by teaching it.
Right.
If we're moving to more remote service delivery, then doing those sort of simulated learning experiences in a remote service delivery environment and then talking about how it would differ if we were in person, because someday we will be sometimes in person and sometimes remotely. You're going to have both paradigms. So why not use this opportunity to shift, sort of some of those teaching methods to address online? I know we're doing that, in the education. Like, for instance, we're teaching remote business development in addition to in-person. And we're saying, we know you're not doing a lot of in-person right now, so we're going to talk about it, but it's not necessarily what you're going to be able to do in the next 6 months. These remote things are. And so, teaching it remotely doesn't hurt us. It doesn't matter how it's taught as long as they have the opportunity to learn both in-person and remote techniques, because that's where it's all headed, not just because of COVID-19. And we talked about that last time, but this is next-gen clients and next-gen talent want a more digital experience. They want more efficiency. They want less time on the road, less time commuting, more time doing it and getting on with life, more integration of their life and their work, and remote is a part of that. So figuring this stuff out now isn't like a Band-Aid to manage COVID-19. It's a permanent investment in your firm's talent management strategy, which has to have remote as a part of it. And one more idea here is that for our multi-office clients, being able to manage our administrative processes like orientation and onboarding and interviews with talent remotely keeps us from having to travel to multiple offices or bring people in from multiple offices. And that doesn't mean we never meet in person again, but we can start to choose when we meet in person and use other opportunities to do it remotely where it might be more efficient, less expensive, save us travel, save us time. So it's worth the time to figure out.
Well, and I think that's the whole thing, is that it's an option. And I think that option is here to stay. And we have to give the option. If we're not giving the option, then, people are going to look at us, kind of cross-eyed. It's like we have to provide that option. And again, on this business development, call I was on today, it's just so fresh right there. But you triggered it about the next gen talent and clients. Somebody piped up and said, maybe one of the qualifications of our ideal target clients are they digitally enabled? And if they don't want to use the technology and, they're insisting on paper or they're insisting in person, then maybe they're not ideal. And that's tough to shift. But I think it's the same for our talent. I think your next gen talent that you're recruiting, they're already there and they expect your firm to be there. And that's going to be the clients that they're going to be attracting, that they're going to be leading, is those clients. So, we have to figure out how to get there.
Well, and I'm going to approach two kind of gnarly things on that course. With 5 minutes left, Tamera, I'm going to throw out two bombs. One is this: as an HR professional, a talent professional, I can't be the reason we're not doing it because I'm not digitally enabled. I can't be the reason that we're doing it because I can't get over the three-dimensional paradigm. I have to lead my firm in this direction. I have to get over my biases. I have to shift, or I have to hand these things over to people that are digitally enabled on my team who can figure it out. I cannot be the reason we're not doing it, because if I am, I'm going to hold our firm back. That's number one. And number two, equally gnarly and probably related. These two are probably twins or something that are related. I cannot have a paper-based HR system or process. I have to shift myself and my processes and the way we manage HR to online and to digital. And one of the weird things that happened with COVID-19 is we found that we had more paperless, or less paper maybe, client processes, service processes in our departments. But in our operational areas, we found we had a lot of paper processes inside the business. Like, oh, you have a new hire and you want to requisition stuff for them? Well, fill out this form. And it wasn't online or whatever. Oh, you're going to sign up for the 401k. Well, here's all this paper I'm going to send you. So that's something else to be thinking about, not just remote and digital learning, orientation, hiring, recruiting, interviewing, all of that, but also what are the other things in my HR department, my dominion, are still paper-based or not being thought of in this next generation digital way, and what can we do about that? And you won't pick them off all at once, but make a list and start picking them off, because we can't have that. It makes us look old school, and and it doesn't enable versatility and nimbleness like was needed just now when this pandemic hit. We have to be able to shift on a dime to remote. When a hurricane hits, flood, any other disaster that may come our way, we've got to have more agility, and digital processes will get us there.
Well, and it expands our reach for recruiting and our talent. And, we don't want to be limited because it has to be a paper transaction, or even across offices, or I have one remote worker. I mean, we're all, been remote in some capacity right now, but again, how do we expand that? And I just had to print down health physical forms for the doctor's office, all paper-based. And so both school and Boy Scouts. And it's like, how can we move that to digital? And that's an example. It's like, you just got to start making a list, and how do we just keep moving those things, forward? Well, so I know we wanted to touch on feedback. We've got just a couple minutes left, so maybe we, look at one piece of that, and then we can pick that up in our next week's HR Huddle. So where do you want to start with that?
Well, I think I was just going to say that as we were thinking about remote paradigm, one of the things that can get lost is feedback. And I can have a thing called, it's weird to deliver you feedback unless we're together. So I'm going to wait to tell you about some of the things I've heard from others that you need to improve till we're together again. And that's a mammoth mistake. We don't want you to wait, and you should look at the remote environment as feedback ready. Video helps, certainly, but even if you just have to do it on phone, it's critical. Don't withhold feedback from people because you are remote from them, please. Schedule time, and if you're afraid to bring up something negative, do what what we called Keep, Stop, Start, and say, here are some things that are really working in what you're doing that I want you to keep doing. Here are some things that aren't working as well that I want you to stop doing. And here's some things that you need to start doing going forward. And tell people, I'm going to use this feedback format called Keep, Stop, Start. I'd love to talk to you in a week at this time. I'm going to tell you some Keep, Stop, Start things I'm noticing. I would love it if you gave me Keep, Stop, Start feedback. Go for it. Tell me what things I need to change or that our organization needs to change to provide you better support. And so make it a two-way dialogue, but please do not defer those conversations. People need to know the things that they need to do to improve, or the questions that you have about what's going on over there. I talked to somebody today and she said, the guy is working less. I can see it in his hours. I can see it in his production. I can see it in how he's chasing everything. And I'm not sure why. And I said, well, there's only one way to find out. You've got to talk to him. And we don't know why. And it could be really important, good reasons, like family issues and situations at home or illness, or who knows what's going on with him. But just wondering about it and maybe complaining with your fellow leaders, that's not going to get us anywhere. And it won't help him and it won't help your firm. So please don't hold back on that stuff.
Well, it doesn't change the results. That's the bottom line. So, and I think, I go back to the word that we used last week is, workability. And we're all trying to make it workable. We want it workable for ourselves and our families, and for, you and I working together for the client and delivering. And so we can come from workability, and then I want to check in or I want to ask, but then also make sure that we're doing a good job in expectations. I think sometimes when we go to deliver feedback, we realize maybe I wasn't just clear about expectations, or I made some assumptions. And that's fine, because then I can say, hey, I'm realizing this, or might discover it actually in the conversation once I start the conversation. Then we say, how do we shore that up so that we can be sure that we're clear on the expectations, we're writing a recap, and then we can check in against that. It makes giving that feedback so much easier. And we can do all of that, virtual with video, writing a recap in the email, checking in on Teams, how it's going, and getting a status. Those kinds of ways to, facilitate feedback. So I think that's so great.
Yes, I do too. And Tamera, while you were talking, I was hearing an entire HR huddle on expectations. Not necessarily remote expectations we talked about last time, but just in general, like, how is my performance measured? What does success look like? How can we tell? You're right. Oftentimes when we go to deliver feedback, we discover the feedback is, I don't know if I ever told you what was expected.
Right.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Well, I think we're at time.
I do too. Well, and so on that note, if you have other ideas for future HR Huddle topics, do let us know. You can message us or you can email us. We'd love to hear that. But we are going to continue to generate topics. Obviously, we've got a lot. So it was great to be with you again today. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.
See y'all.
Thank you.